Hey everybody, Steve Winward here. And in this video, I'm going to talk to you about how you can use Power Platform and do application lifecycle management and do end-to-end DevOps with GitHub Actions. This is a really powerful feature and a really great example of just how extensible the Power Platform is. And even cooler, what I'm going to show is actually working today in our US government sovereign cloud, GCC. We've also got samples available publicly on GitHub too. So in the links below, you can go to GitHub to see this in action yourself. Or you can clone it if you want to be able to do this on your own. It's very easy to get started today with that. Now, why would you want to go down this route? We recommend that if you want to do true application lifecycle management, we have solution files that are in Power Platform today. You don't have to use source control with those. You can manually export those files, package applications into that, and bring that into other environments. But if you want to automate the process and help reduce the human error aspect of that, you can actually take advantage of GitHub Actions to automate that end to end. So what we're going to show you today is a demo of that in real time, what that looks like, how to set that up, how to get started. And before we do that, I'm going to give you a quick overview of how this solution will work, and then we'll show you the demo in action. One quick disclaimer on this video. We do assume that you know some information about application lifecycle management with Power Platform, what solution files are, and how they work and how to deploy that. We'll put some fantastic resources in the links below so you can get started on that. But for this video, we're really going to focus on how to use that with GitHub. So I just wanted to put that out there. If you want to learn more about application lifecycle management with Power Platform, we've got phenomenal resources. This video is not meant to replace that. Here's a quick overview of what this is going to look like from a topology perspective with Power Platform. We're going to have three environments. A development environment, which is where me, the low-code maker, is going to make changes to my application. We also have a build environment and a production environment. The build environment is going to be used by the GitHub action, which is going to actually take the solution file, build it there, export it as what's called a managed solution, get that over to production. Now at this point, you may be wondering, why do you need multiple environments? Couldn't we just do this in a single environment? And the answer is yes, you can. But the challenge that you'll run into is that now with only one single environment, you have to make your changes in the same place that your users are using your production application. And on top of that, it can be hard to understand when you've made changes, what were the changes that you made? What were the different kinds of things that you did to get your application to that state? And if you needed to move that into another environment, how would you do that? How would you deploy it? How do you know that when you bring all those other files into another environment that you have the environment exactly the way that it should be for the users to be able to use your application? And so that's really the motivation for why you would want to do this kind of approach in terms of using CI/CD DevOps with GitHub Actions. The first step of this, if we zoom in here, is that me, the maker, I'm going to make changes in Power Platform in my development environment. When I'm happy with those updates, I'm then going to go to GitHub to run a GitHub action to export that into source code. That'll create a separate branch, which then can be merged into main. I'll show you that in a second. Now, the second part of this is going to be once that code is updated in main, I can then have another GitHub action that will automatically take that file, package it back up into a solution file, deploy it to the build environment. Now we do this because the way that it is in source code is unmanaged. Unmanaged means that you can make changes to that solution file. And that's what we want in our development environment. But then what we'll do is we'll export that as a managed solution, which means at this point you cannot make changes to that solution file. We take that artifact in GitHub and then deploy that to production. And the beauty here is that now in production, you cannot make changes to that solution file. And that's exactly what you want to really do true application lifecycle management. You should never make changes directly in production. You should always do that in dev and then be able to test that across your multiple environments. All right, so let's go ahead and see this for real in Power Platform, how you can take that solution, automatically export it into the source code, and then automatically deploy that into production. So I'm in my development environment in Power Platform. I'm going to go to Solutions. I've got a Hello World Canvas app solution already created. And inside of there, I have one asset, and that is a Canvas application. What I want to do now is I want to make changes to that. And then I want to make these changes available eventually into our production environment. So let's go ahead and make a change. So I'm opening up the Canvas editor. And as you can see, this is a very simple Canvas app. This could be much more complex, but for this demo, I just want to show you a simple example of this. So let's go ahead and make a quick change. All right, so at this point, I'm happy with my updated Canvas app. I'm gonna now save this, publish it, and then I'll show you what this looks like in GitHub. So now I'm in GitHub, and what I want to do now is I want to be able to export that solution file we're looking at into GitHub source control. So to do that, we're using GitHub Actions. So let's do the first action here. And in this case, I have one set up to export the Hello World Canvas app solution file. So I'm going to kick this workflow off. And now what we can see is we can watch this GitHub action run in real time here. And so there are a series of steps inside of this GitHub action. And so we can watch all of these now. And now it completed successfully. The next thing we want to do is let's go ahead and look at what this looks like now that that solution file was exported and brought into source code. So now when I go back to my repository, what I'll see is that there is now a new branch. There's now the Hello World Canvas app with a timestamp of when that solution file was exported. So that's the brand new branch that got created. Now what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to take that new branch and merge that into main so that I can then take it and automatically publish that out into our production environment. So to do that, we're going to create a pull request. So I'm going to go to pull requests. I'm going to say I want to create a new pull request. And then it's already giving me an example of the pull request I can submit with that new branch that was created. We'll go ahead and create that. I'm going to create a new pull request off of that. And here I'm going to give it a name. I'm just going to say that I updated the Canvas application UI. Made a small tweak to the UI in the Canvas app. And now at this point, I want to create a new pull request. And now that that's created, what I want to do now is I want to merge that into the main branch. Now there's a couple different ways you can do this. I want to do what's called squash and merge, which means if there were multiple changes, it would just bring all those changes into a single commit into main. So I'm going to click squash and merge. We're going to confirm that. And now that brought that back into main. And then the last thing we can do is I can actually delete that branch that was created because we don't need that anymore. So if we go back to the main repository here, you'll see that there are no other branches, there's just main. And then if you go into here, you'll actually see that there's now a folder for the Hello World Canvas app. And all of the assets from that solution got unpacked, which means that they're no longer in a zip file. And you can actually see all of the contents of that solution file right here in Git. And what's really powerful about that is as you make changes, or as multiple makers make changes and bring that into source code, you can actually see the differences and what were the changes in your Canvas app or for the other solution files in the assets of your solution. Now the last step to this is what we want to do next is we want to then bring this over automatically into our production environment. So in Power Platform, I have multiple environments set up. What we looked at first was the developer environment. So what we can do for this is we're going to leverage releases in GitHub. So I'm going to now create a new release. We're going to give it a tag, and so I'll call this v1.0.0 for our first release. We'll create a new tag. And for this title, I will say this is our first major solution release. And we'll go ahead and publish this. Now what this is doing under the covers is actually kicking off another GitHub action. This GitHub action is now going to take what's in source code, package that back up into a solution file, publish that into the build environment, export that into what's called a managed solution, and then take that and publish that into production. So if we go to actions here, we now see that the release action is running. And with that, there's two stages to this. And so we're going to click into the jobs here. And once again, just like the other one, we can watch this in real time. So it packed the solution from source code. It's now going to import that as an unmanaged solution into the build environment, which is that step right here. And the next thing it's going to do is it's going to export that as a managed solution. And so that first step of going to the build environment and then exporting as a managed solution is completed. The next step in this workflow is now what it's going to be doing is taking that managed solution and publishing that into production. And now we can see that everything completed. So let's now look at what that looks like in Power Platform. So now what I'm looking at here is the production environment. So what we want to see now is, did that change propagate over to production? So let's go into our solutions. We can see the Hello World Canvas app. And then I can see the Hello World Canvas app inside of that solution file. Now you also see here that you can't edit objects directly within a managed solution. And in this case, that's what we want. We don't want people to be able to make changes in production. We want people to make those changes in their development environments and then promote them into production. Now let's go ahead and play this Canvas app. We took it from our development environment, made the changes, automatically took that solution into GitHub, and then we were able to use GitHub to package that back up and publish that into production for us. So I want to quickly just walk through how can you get started with this and a little bit of the nuts and bolts of how do these GitHub actions work under the covers. So first, if you want to get started with this, go to this repository, which the link will be in the video below. Once you get here, you can go ahead and clone this and you can have your own repository to set this up. And there's also steps on the README of how to do this in terms of what do you need for Power Platform, what do you need for GitHub, how do you set up the secrets, which are the different configuration variables to know which environment to go to get this all working. That's all there. But what I wanted to do is just walk through the YAML syntax of the workflows just to explain a little bit of how this works. We also have fantastic examples of this on our Power Platform GitHub Actions repository too, but this is the actual implementation for this demo. Now in that first step where you take a solution file, export that into GitHub, there is a workflow here, and this one is called a reusable template here. And what this does is it gives you different parameters that you can specify to do that flow. And the reason why we made this reusable here is that you may have multiple workflows, multiple solution files you want to export into source code. So that is all kind of set up here. And the actual implementation of that in this case is export hello world. And you'll see this one is much smaller. And the only thing you have to define is you're going to say, I want to use that reusable YAML file. The solution name here is going to be Hello World Canvas app. And in this case, the cloud type is US Gov, and that's because in this case, we're working with an actual GCC instance. But if you were doing commercial, that would be public. You can specify that there. And then also we have different configuration. That's for the Azure Active Directory application we're using to authenticate to Power Platform. All of those are stored as secrets in GitHub for this repository. And so the beauty there is we don't have to have that in plain text. It's encrypted and stored and dealt with securely by GitHub. Now the other workflow is the release to production, and we did that in a similar fashion. There is a reusable template for that, which has a number of different parameters you can specify and a number of jobs associated with that. And so if you walk through that, you'll see a bunch of steps. At a high level, this is going to publish to build, export as a managed solution, then take that artifact, put that into production. And then when we go to the actual implementation of this, it's set up as release hello world, once again, much smaller. And we just specify what's the solution name, the cloud type, in this case, GCC, and then what are the build and production URLs. All of that is set up. That's all you need to do there. Thank you everybody for taking the time to watch this video. If you have questions, please feel free to put them in the comments below. We will link everything we just showed in this video so you can get started really quickly. You'll have a link to the GitHub repository with the demo we showed. We'll also put a number of other links in there as well. General application lifecycle management for Power Platform, how do solution files work, what's unmanaged versus managed. We'll have all of that in the notes below. And until next time, thank you for watching this video.